This is all about the song.
My name is Michael McDonnell. I am a songwriter, a musician. I play the bass guitar. I grew up playing in bands. I grew up loving music. The first time I ever really got into music was watching a church choir when I was 5. I fell in love with it. It was the coolest thing ever. I always wanted to sing and dance, do whatever when it was with music. I loved listening to James Brown, Queen, Elvis Presley, the Beach Boys. Basically the soundtrack to The Big Chill and Forrest Gump and Good Morning Vietnam were my early soundtracks, as well as Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat and The Phantom of the Opera. I always wanted to play music. I found it really hard to write songs. All my friends got into music at the same time, the 8th grade, and it was infectious. We played ever since. So I joined a band in high school, and I played, and the band was good. We were all right for young 16-year-olds. The band was called, at first, Crash Kills 5, then Sadie Mae Crash, and then the Ruby Spirit. And we played for 10 years. Through that period of time, basically 15 to 25, I knew I wanted to start writing songs to show my voice and expand myself beyond just the bass guitar. I found it to be really hard, actually. It was difficult. I was not very good at it. The lyrics that my friends did see was usually, they'd go into my room, find them, read them, and laugh hysterically as I laughed along, but inside was like dying. Dying, a very slow death as they looked at the lyrics and laughed. And they were bad. They were really bad. So I understood, but I kept plugging along. I kept plugging along because I just wanted to really give myself a voice. And I really didn't know where to begin, and it took a long time. And the band members did their best to help me out. But once the band broke up, I was really able to blossom. I started playing in a bunch of different bands after the main band, the Ruby Spirit, broke up. And I found that it was really hard to be able to play or write songs in a band where there's a singer and a keyboard player and a guitar player. You're the bass player. It's the rhythm section. Don't get me wrong. Like, Paul McCartney was a bass player, and he got his songs in play. I just felt like it wasn't a place that I could kind of quarterback the team if you're also hiking the ball. What I ended up doing was, at the suggestion of a producer, Matt Fudge, who I'll talk about throughout this podcast, I'm sure, ad nauseum. Matt encouraged me after watching me write songs for a band, and they didn't really like them. They liked him, but they didn't really want to use him because it wasn't the lead singer's voice in particular. But he saw what I was doing and decided, basically said, you got to start your own band. You got to start your own project. You got to write your songs. And it really put me into having to face my fears. So what I ended up doing is I wrote an album, and I started my own project. It's called Good Luck Shop. And it's brand new. I'm brand new. It's one of the greatest decisions I've made in life to start this group. And where I'm at right now is I released 10 songs. I recorded them with Matt in Toronto, and also outside. We mixed it in a church at one point. We recorded vocals at my parents' farm. We explored, and we really took our time, and I really got into writing songs and what the craft of songwriting was. There's the technical aspect of it, but there's also just how you feel emotionally about songs. And when I look back on it, it was a very autobiographical, and it explained where I was in life in a more honest way than I knew at the time. I've started this project. I'm so excited to see it through. I've released a single called Far, which is available where you get singles, and it's on YouTube with a video that I didn't do anything with it. My friend Adrian Monroe, who's a really great director, directed a music video for the song, and we released the first single, and it went great. And now we're releasing a second one called Evolve, and I'm so excited. One of the things I realized while doing this project was, what do you do? Like, how do you survive as a musician? How do you express yourself? How do you get your songs out there? How do you play? There's so many questions. And in an age where we deal with social media so much, it's really hard to kind of get past the fact that putting yourself out there and getting your songs across to an audience that likes them is like throwing spaghetti against a wall and seeing if it sticks. It gets really hard, and I realized that I really wanted to talk to a lot of people about what I should do. And then I did, and we just talked about Facebook advertising. And it got to the point where the songs and the artistry and it all became a backseat. And I was on the phone with a friend of mine, Alex Pulec, who's our guest today, our episode number 1 guest. He plays in a band called the Nursery, and they just released an album. We talked about Facebook ads. That's what we discussed. And I realized that, here we were. We've been friends forever. We met in high school, and he played in Crash Kills 5 Sadie Mae Crash, The Ruby Spirit with me. I first saw him play guitar. I was 13, 14. Here we are, 16 years later. We've accomplished a lot. We have so much more to do. But here we are talking on the phone about Facebook. I mean, the guy just released an album. I've released my own songs. But, I mean, I realized it's like, let's talk about something more interesting. Let's bring songs to the forefront again. Let's really bring up what it is that we're doing and not treat songs like an afterthought or a can of Coke that can be bought for 99 cents at the Apple Store. I really just wanted to get back to what songs were and create a narrative about, what it is that you're doing, why you do it. It's not easy. It's very hard to get paid. It's a lot of work, even if nobody's noticing. It's an incredible amount of work, and you're doing it while writing a song about how you feel. It could be a breakup. It could be about a death. It could be about your dog. It could be about anything, but it's so emotional, and you're putting yourself out there. I realized I just wanted to talk to musicians and people that love music and songs. Talk about 3 things, really. And those are why you do it, what you're doing now, and what you've done. I want to find out, even if every podcast starts with, elementary school, high school, what was your first instrument? I feel like everybody's had a different answer so far. I plan to interview just about anyone. Musicals, indie bands, singer-songwriters, a jazz artist, anybody. People that live for a song, that live because of a song. If it's what they do every day, or if it's what they think about all the time, why they're possessed to continue, and what they have. I want to really get into depth with the artist and what it's like. I'm going to have artists on that are brand new. I'm going to have artists on that are not. I'm going to have artists that have been touring for years and years and years, and people like me that are just starting out trying to figure things out. I'm really looking forward to this, and I've really wanted to do it. When I recorded my album, I loved just being so immersed in the music and deciding what words work best or what chords, or the musician that played that guitar solo on your album, how it just changed everything. If you ever have any suggestions for the podcast, you can always go to our Facebook page, All About the Song, and send me a message on Messenger about an artist that you think would be great to hear on the podcast. Any feedback would be great. I'm really excited to do this, and I've recorded about 5 podcasts in advance just to be ahead. I'm going to release this weekly, and I'm so far just over the moon with the experiences I've had with the first 5 podcast guests. Alex Pulec is a really interesting person. As I said, I've known him for a very long time. His band, The Nursery, they've been together for 5 years, and it's been really wonderful to watch Alex kind of do something like I have, but 5 years before, where he broke off from a band to do his own thing, and he's joined Victor S. and Josh English from Buffalo as the drummer, and the outfit have really put something together that I quite enjoy. So, without delay, ladies and gentlemen, episode 1, The Nursery, Alex Pulec. This song is called Everyone is Famous Except Me.
Captured, raptured, you laugh like an actor, senses bought and sold. Cracked her, smacked her, can't stand the laughter. Followers, swallowers, clowns, thieves and lawyers. Everybody's famous. Everybody's famous except me. Everybody's famous. Everybody's famous except me. Woo! They kiss like a machine, tired eyes staring at stars through screen. My favorite TV show to watch is your face, because we're all alone. I had an idea today. There goes a needle in the worldwide hay. Illuminati don't have taste anyway, because they're all alone. Everybody's famous. Everybody's famous except me. Everybody's famous. When everybody's famous except me. Young, plush, and tasteless, well-fed and heinous. Oh, we gotta run, run, run. Yeah, run, run, run. Plugged in and painless, and nothing can change us. Oh, we gotta run, run, run. 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 Everybody's famous, 'cause everybody's famous except me. When everybody's famous. When everybody's famous except me.
Welcome. Congratulations on the album.
Thank you so much.
That's pretty cool that you have an album done. It's in
Yeah.
the cans.
Yeah.
Streaming.
Definitely takes a lot to put an album together besides time, a lot of emotions, a lot of, everything, a lot of yourself, a lot of time, money, all that stuff.
How did you feel, now that you've put it out, how do you feel that other people get to listen to it?
I feel great. It's that, the reason why I went into music is so that I could, communicate and resonate with people on a level that wasn't just talking to them, and hopefully reach other parts of the world with people who don't speak English. And that's something I've always loved about music, that it can really connect and unite us. So it feels great that there's work out there, and frankly, I just can't wait to keep putting more songs out there.
Are you saying that you're putting songs out there to the world to teach them English? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So now, okay, so this album came out. You've done a couple videos for it. You just released your third video. Mm-hmm. You work with Genevieve Blay on your videos and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Congratulations on the video aspect too.
Thank you.
I'm firsthand experiencing the difficulty behind doing music videos. Mm-hmm. But and it's a whole other forum and to show like your artistic direction.
Right. I think the music is honestly just one part of my artistic direction and message, or whatever it is that you want to call it. Like, whether it's because the songs are abstract or they're just telling one part of the story, visual components, whether it's videos or just images, are extremely important to what the Nursery has always been about.
Yeah, I wanted to, so let's start from the beginning, because, I've known you for a very long time, and I candidly first saw you play grade 9 talent show, and I was very impressed by the way that you played Damn It by Blink-182, and you threw in like a little thing, but it was interesting because I could watch and see that you had something that you were doing that was different than everyone else. There was a different connection to music, but what was it for you?
I think music just represented the first truth and most genuine truth that seemed to exist, in terms of making something out of nothing and then having it resonate with people. And it just seemed so magical and amazing. Like, I grew up in the suburbs, which is very isolated. Nobody my age seemed to be around ever. And music saved me from a lot of that isolation and alienation, because it was connecting me to not just the people singing and playing music on record, but to everybody else who was into this as well, whether, if I were to go to a show and see somebody play. So it was just this amazing thing that just seemed extremely genuine, and I was immediately attracted to it and fascinated by it. So I just threw everything into it.
Did you start playing on the guitar?
I started playing on the piano because my grandmother had one in her amazing grandma apartment. You know those that are always so cool when you're a kid. You're like, going to grandma's house. There's carpet everywhere and like weird, decor. So she had a piano next to a window, and she played. She was the first person that played for me when I was like about 2 or 3 years old, maybe even younger. And it was just amazing. The sound, enraptured me. And I thought that was fantastic. So at some point, my parents thought it was a good idea to get me piano lessons, and that was I thought that was going to be a lot more fun than it was, and it really wasn't. And I was actually turned off after a couple years, after I just, things like rock and punk music entered my life, and I knew guitar was the instrument for me at that point, and I just dropped playing piano as quick as I could and picked up a guitar.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, what were you playing on the piano? Like, what was your musical references that you were doing?
Like, a lot of, like, European classical music, just, like, just all that kind of stuff. Rachmaninoff, Bach, Wagner, Mozart stuff. I wasn't playing their full pieces, but just little bits in here, and then, like, learning from the masters, so to speak. And, little preludes that were in early learning piano books and stuff like that. So essentially, like, European classical music was the first music that I was engaging with.
Did you find that it has like translated through your music that you do now?
Yeah, I think a lot of its drama has translated into the music. Creating moods was pretty much the only purpose of that kind of music back then. It wasn't entertaining. It wasn't to make people laugh or to feel cool or be sold essentially in any kind of capitalistic way. So it was just to create mood and drama within people's hearts. So I think that's the thing that really took over into the Nursery stuff. I really love the idea of a song taking you somewhere and getting really dramatic and getting really intense.
Now, when you started playing guitar, what were your big influences then? Because I started playing guitar around the
Probably
same
Johnny
time.
Greenwood from like Radiohead and Joey Santiago from the Pixies. Early on, I thought Jack White was pretty cool for what he was doing with garbage equipment, making it sound good. And yeah, they were the first guitarists that seemed really special to me. Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine, really all those guitarists who seemingly beat up their guitars and make all these noises that would typically sound ugly in a situation and unwanted, but they make it sound extremely musical and compelling. And I thought that it was just so special. That was always more interesting to me than playing billions of notes really fast, knowing scales, knowing every blues lick there was, having techniques. I just thought it was, again, a more genuine and true sense of what music and sound can be.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now you started, so when you joined high school, I mean, there's a big wave of music for us. Like we watched a lot of our peers get into music at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
What happened for you when music became a thing? When everyone put their skateboards away and started like picking up an instrument?
So do you mean like after school?
No, I mean like when because for us, like music all of a sudden became like a really interesting thing, and it became I don't want to say trendy because it wasn't like a visual trend, but it was like music became a thing. Like there was a big wave, and it was like everybody we knew picked up a guitar, and then found a drummer, a bass player.
Frankly, yeah, I think we all actually inspired each other because, a couple of us started doing it first. And then from that point on, I think that started inspiring other people to pick up instruments and start starting bands. And then maybe you and me would see another band get started and be like, oh, cool, they're incorporating keyboards or like something new into the mix. And that would inspire us to push what we were doing a little further. And all of a sudden, then you just see all the students growing, all these musicians growing and growing out of this. And now we're not just holding like talent shows where there's like a couple bands in the school. We're holding rock nights where literally there's 10 bands, doing pop, blues, jazz. And I know one project I had at the time was completely experimental. It was called Death on the Highway with Mark.
Yep.
And yeah, we just had guitars with chopsticks through them, being put through amps, smashing them, making noises. It was just insane. So I think that it was the perfect example of an organic community inspiring each other and pushing each other to make great or at least interesting things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately that did die once, we all graduated and went our separate ways. Some of us have kept doing it, like you and me, and others. But I wish that sense of community was still there in some ways, but, we're finding it now in Toronto and other places.
And tell me about your high school experience playing music.
Well, it was a lot of cover songs. I wasn't really writing as much with the bands that I was playing with, but I was doing a lot of writing by myself, and that would sometimes work its way in. So yeah, just a lot of covers of songs that we all liked at the time. Mostly punk stuff with a bit of a more mainstream element at the time, like No Doubt, things like that.
And how did you start drawing yourself towards writing your own music at that time? Like, what were you using? Like, what were you doing to record?
So I think at that time I might have had GarageBand. But before GarageBand, it was all that karaoke machine that I don't know if I've told you the story before, but tell it a lot. Both my parents are pretty fobby. They came here from other countries, and karaoke, it was the big thing. Karaoke was incredible. So they were obsessed. They bought a karaoke machine, but it was one of these ones where you would have tapes, loading tapes, and I thought even the mic, like when I was like 3 years old, I was just like, oh, all this delay on the mic sounds so weird and cool. So yeah, anyways, it turns out there was a record function on the karaoke machine that I figured out, and there was a mic, and put two and two together after a while. I'm like, oh my God, I can record on this tape. And then it had 2 levels, so I was like, no way, I can actually overdub. And then I learned about overdubbing, and I wasn't working on songs at this point. It was just noises, and then eventually it turned into song ideas, and that's what I would use to sketch out everything. Again, like I mentioned, growing up in the suburbs of any community is pretty isolated. So to create a sense of, I had a lot of time on my own. So building up songs and, teaching myself how to play drums and bass from the guitar standpoint was something I spent most of my time doing, and just using that karaoke machine to keep overdubbing tracks and build these little songs and these little bands. They weren't great, but it was definitely a huge and really important time for me.
What were the bands like that you started or that you participated in, played with?
Again, they're mostly like kind of punky bands that were kind of more of a mainstream kind of punk thing at the time, because that was also at the time where the internet was, and Napster and Morpheus and Kazaa and all that stuff was still coming out and a new thing. So the only music that I was getting from the world was radio and TV. So Much Music, and you're getting top 40 kind of mainstream stuff. The wedge on Much Music was definitely the most exciting thing for me. But other than that, you're getting 102.1 The Edge in Toronto, and just other stuff that's pretty mainstream. So my view of what music could be was pretty narrow at that point. And it was anything that kind of felt alternative, but that could still fit on the radio was what excited me. And then eventually when the internet became more of a place to find music, and I started working at a record store after high school, that's when I just went crazy and listened to as much music as possible and really found myself musically of what I really connected to a lot better.
So now, after high school, playing in a bunch of high school bands and stuff like that, you went to university.
Yes, for
Sorta,
shortly.
kinda.
Yeah. It's
Do you
definitely
remember?
short.
Yeah, you did go to university.
I did for music
minute.
and psych. It was 2 years, and I took psychology and music, which are two of the most important and definitive things about me and about my life. I've always been extremely interested in music, as we're talking about, and extremely fascinated with the human experience and what happens in the human mind and how it perceives everything. And so to me, like, mixing those two elements is kind of my art in a sense, and whether it's coming out through photo, video, or music, it's really trying to tap into that experience and bridge those two things. And I'm still just as fascinated with them. I personally did not have a great time within the academic system. I have a lot of criticisms about the academic system. I think it's a failing institution that is more evidenced in the United States than in Canada, and I'm happy to get out when I did.
Now, I remember you played, was it the tar in university?
The sitar. I studied in one great thing in York is they had a Middle Eastern music class. So I studied the oud.
That's right.
And a sitar and tabla. And so that was really mind opening and for me, and it was great to be exposed to all this new music. That way, through like playing it firsthand, and it, I think it influenced me a little bit at the time.
Well, I remember when you got the tar and brought it around and blew our minds with the concept of the quarter note.
Right.
We were having our own troubles with the half note, and then all of a sudden we have a quarter note.
For sure. Yeah, it's just so interesting, like at that time I was just learning everything I could about music. At this point, like, I had kind of absorbed as much American and like North American and European music as I could, and English stuff. And at that point, I was looking to other places in the world. Like even African drumming, I got into right after that. I didn't play it or study it, but I just really got into it, and yeah.
Now, okay, so you played in a band.
I played in a band. I played in a few bands.
Played in a few bands, but you played in a main band.
Band.
You had a really cute bass player in that band too, if I recall.
Yeah, he was really cute.
For 10 years, he still is cute. 10 years, playing a band. Crash Kills 5, Sadie Mae crashed the Ruby Spirit.
Right.
Now, I know all about them because I played in them. Now, what
Right.
was your experience like playing in a group?
My experience was pretty great in a group, because at the first time, it was a group where I felt we were all going for the same thing, and we all shared the same excitement about seeing what we could do with our music. It wasn't so much about writing a hit song and like being wrapped up in the industry. You know, that's something that comes later with a bit of age. But you know, we were pretty young at the time, 20, 19, and it was just felt good to be around people who I felt, you know, were on my musical level and wanted to push and experiment as much as I did within a pop song format. And yeah, I thought it was great.
It's pretty fun to be able to have to prove ourselves to every sound person.
Yeah,
big
those
X's on our hands for being underage to be in a bar and have to do your whole set, and they go, "Oh, you guys are good."
Yeah, a lot of learning experiences there for sure. A lot of getting kicked out of bars right after we played, right before we played.
I remember that.
But just think about that. Like just think about going to a gig, sound checking, and then being told you have to go outside now, waiting outside, coming in, playing your set, and getting kicked out again. It's just like it's so.
That being
so
said,
unheard of.
go have a look at a 19-year-old now. Don't think you would do the same.
Sure.
They're young. We were young when we did that. It was a definite experience, eye-opening experience, and yeah, we got some good drinks too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, okay, so the band ended. It was around 25.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No. It was around when because we're about the same age. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And we
we're
did a
about
big
25.
push at the end there. The Ruby Spirit, Born Under a Veil EP, which we did.
Great EP. I still think it's an amazing record. It's still probably the first record that I could ever say I was fully proud of that I made up until that part. And we did things. We made other EPs, you know, that we essentially scrapped the moment they came out.
Yeah.
And this is the one that sticks with me. And I kind of almost look at it as the first time that I and we as a collective did something that we could really confidently stand behind.
Now, you as a co-songwriter with the album, you had a lot to do with its inception. You had a lot to do with what the album was about. We worked with Tony Malone, who was a producer in Toronto. What was it like to work with a producer for the first time?
With a producer. Well, it was great having someone that you could trust who essentially knew more than you. And trust is the most important thing. Someone you could trust to just be that step back from, because you get too close to it. You get so emotional. If you're a writer, especially, you're even more emotional, even more connected to, let's say, like a session musician. And you just get too close to it. And I think it's so important to have people you trust and who more importantly, know exactly what you want to say and get out there. Direct you and produce your work. It enriches your work, and it brings something to it you never would have brought ever. And maybe that even means finishing it, because a lot of us don't finish our work. It's the age where there's more of us are perfectionists now than ever, because self-editing and is a thing of the internet in the future. I suffer from this, and a lot of us just keep going at it until it's quote unquote perfect, and maybe it never ever comes out. But what's great about a producer is they push you to just walk away and say, this is it. This is what you wrote. This is what you meant. Trust me that it's done, and you need to move on. And I thought that was really valuable at the time.
Well, I was there, so I know how it went. It was a long process.
It was definitely a long process. I mean, it didn't help that our producer at the time was Tony, is also someone who is really highly detail-oriented and a little bit of a perfectionist himself, but I think that's kind of what we needed. We needed a person like that we could trust, because I don't know if you remember, but every producer we worked with before that was too, oh yeah, it's done, let's get it done, like sign, seal, deliver, like 1 hour, it's all good. You know, first take, yeah, that sounds all right, or you know, we would know we did a shitty take, and they'd be like, sounds good, let's continue. And that instills no confidence in us, and I thought that was a big problem for a long time. And finally, we found someone who's as crazy as us to get hyper-obsessed over what we're doing, and it clicked. And, that was good at the time.
We were a very intense band. It's also something when you're in your early 20s, you've been in a band for a long time, the same group of people.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of want something and you're all talking to each other all day long about what it is that you want. And it was really, you know, in hindsight, we all thinking different things basically about an album. And from my recollection, it was nice to have a producer who basically kind of like bottlenecked everything.
Yeah,
and
bringing
created a channel.
Yeah, they kind of tie together all the elements we had in common that we wanted to see in the end of this record.
Yeah.
I think together as best as they could. I don't think everybody was 100% satisfied, but I think we were more satisfied than we ever had been, and probably more than if we had done it ourselves.
It's safe to say that the album broke us up in the end, in a sense.
I don't think the album broke us up in the end.
I think we were ready to go.
I think we were ready to stop the situation that we had, and I feel it really didn't have anything to do with the music, and it had everything to do with the people who assumed their influence over the music, who weren't the songwriters, and the musicians, be it managers, promoters, and everybody else, kind of circling around the band like vultures who are like, you gotta do this, we're gonna place you here, we're gonna place you there, and we just bent like flowers towards sunlight, whichever way they wanted to go, to the point where I believe we lost our identity and we kind of all fractured, and we took all the separate things we wanted to do and eventually did them on our own. But I still think there was a lot of life in there if we had a bit more experience, and maybe we're a little less naive to how certain elements within the industry were treating us.
Oh, to be young. We were children. But that, you know,
it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. In hindsight, it turned out all right.
Yeah, it did.
So now, band breaks up. You're left.
I just want to like point out something
most
that I don't think
welcome to.
anybody's ever pointed out.
Okay.
It's called Crash Kills 5.
First band name was called Crash Kills 5.
And then it turned into Sadie May Crash.
Yes.
Now, and then the Ruby Spirit.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, it's very much like a death, like a possible, and then the question of an impending death.
Yeah.
And then the obvious death and rebirth with a Ruby Spirit. So it's very much like a
narrative
crash
between the three names.
It's a narrative of the whole band throughout the band names. It's the way it started, what could happen next, and we all knew what happened. It did die and crash, and the Ruby Spirit kind of flew off and into this phoenix, and we kind of reemerged with a new sound and a new name, and we burned really bright for a while, and then it just faded away.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was really interesting, and obviously not intended, but just one of those strange kind of universal.
Well, it was an interesting experience. I mean, hindsight's 2020. You get to play devil's advocate and look at everything in a big picture. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the real big things is that we were all unified on how much we wanted to succeed, not necessarily how we were going to do it.
Yeah, we're serious. That's another thing. It's really
we're
nice.
Super serious.
It's nice, and maybe a little too. No, I don't think we were too serious, but
I think we were too serious.
I think,
but we thought we were doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. We had to find the middle way. If you bend the string, what is it? If the string is too loose, it won't play. If the string is too tight, it'll break. I think we were on the too tight side.
Yeah, it definitely got there for sure.
Now, okay, so the band breaks up in epic fashion, as does every band in a sense.
Yeah,
and you're left alone.
I'm left alone.
So what do you do?
So I write music.
Yeah, I know, but like where were you left? Like you had worked on a project for just about 10 years that you had started in your adolescence, and here you are 25.
Well, I was left with a huge
slate.
hole. The blank slate was at once liberating and at once completely terrifying. Having everything you took stock in and focused on for 8 to 10 years disappear, or at that point feeling like it was taken away from you. And yeah, it was a really, really tough, scary place, but I'm very much a believer in having to go through those changes and feelings and not distract yourself and kind of be handheld through it. Falling hard is really important to get back up and to do something better than you've ever done before. And in retrospect, I'm thankful that I was able to make something of it, but it was pretty harrowing at the time, and I really that 1 year was definitely not a good year for me.
No. Now so basically where we're at is you started the nursery, where we're at today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the nursery has gone through many personnel changes, and it's taken a while for you guys to find the footing that you have today in regards to just a clear idea of what it is that you're doing.
For sure.
What was it like getting to that spot? Like I remember your first show that you had as a solo artist. You played at the Drake Hotel, not as a solo artist, but as a new band, the Nursery. Like, where was it between the breakup and the first show? Like, what did you do?
Well, there are a lot of things, but regaining that confidence to play live, and most importantly, gaining the confidence to sing my songs. Because prior to that, like you said, there was a co-writing situation with the previous project, and I sang very little backup. Even if I were to write a melody, I would never sing it because Paige in the band had a great voice, and she sang it. And a lot of it was building up that confidence to be like, all right, you write songs, you've always had someone else sing them for you, now you have to sing them, and you have to be the leader of your own material, and you can't expect someone else to do it for you. And that was a lot of work, but it's freeing, and I love it. And I'm just so happy that I got, I stopped being worried pretty much when that show was done. After that show was done, I'm like, okay, I'm here, I got it. But like up until then, it was just so much anxiety, and am I going to be able to do this? Do I sound like shit? Like whatever, all this kind of stuff,
Do you, okay, so
that was a big part, finding a band again.
I was going to ask you that. Now, you're left on your own. How did you find your band? Who's your personnel?
Well, at that time, I was friends with another musician in the scene, Victor S., who is an incredible keyboard and bass player as well. And he had his own projects, and frankly, he was going through the same thing I was. Like, he was in a band that he really dedicated a lot of time to, and it kind of fell apart for whatever reasons. And, we were both fans of each other. And at that point, when everything kind of seemed to disappear, everything kind of crumbled around, and we just kind of looked at each other and be like, oh, I guess we're the only ones left here. Do you want to play together? So it was kind of very innocent in that sense. And then we just experimented. We kept playing, and we knew we wanted synths. We knew we wanted to take things in a much more electronic direction that we were never really able to do with the Ruby Spirit ever, and we just did it. So he, we definitely like created the idea of the band that it was going to sound kind of like this, and we're going to have songs that sounded a bit like that, and that we were going to go out there and do it.
You started recording an album right away.
I started recording an album right away, and it was
with Tony Malone.
With
again.
Tony, yeah, because he was the last record he produced for me. It was great, and I thought, well, the next one's only going to be better because let's learn from this. I know what I want to do better this time, and in some senses it was better, in some senses it wasn't, because what I didn't foresee was, well, now it's not the same kind of band. Now it's like my songs and like I'm singing and like different. So to put it bluntly, I don't think either of us were happy with the record. I don't think Tony was as pleased with it as I was as not pleased with it, and neither of us were pleased with it, but we put it out anyways because that's what we do. And that's it. Victor was kind of part of it. He did some synth on top of it, but he didn't play bass, he didn't play drums, he didn't play anything else. He didn't contribute to any of the writing, which he does now. It was pretty crazy. So we both made I don't know how many people have like made a record where you like look at your producer and band and be like, sorry,
go
about
ahead,
that.
stop tapping.
I don't know how many people make a record where everybody kind of looks at each other and they're just like, yeah, nope, but we're going to put it out anyway because we told ourselves we were going to. So that was, just that alone was a pretty interesting experience. So, eventually when we put out our first actual EP that we wanted, that we were happy with, we nixed that record.
So, okay, so you put out the first record, then what you do, you just played shows, you found a drummer, you found a bass
we
player.
needed music to like play shows. So
Absolutely.
that was another reason we're like, hey, we don't like this record, but like we put a lot of time into it, whatever. Let's just do it. So we used it to, try to gain some traction and tour and play shows and attract musicians and, some kind of audience to what we're all about. And we did that. Then eventually we built our band the way we wanted to and put out the music the way we wanted to.
It's not easy finding a group of people that are all willing to see the same point. I'm only saying it because I know this firsthand, but it's not easy ever to find a band that all, get along, agree, everything like that. And, you guys went through a lot of members trying to find your sound and direction.
Yeah. We went through 4 drummers, and a lot of different keyboard players, Victor playing bass and me were like consistent, but still, we were writing and recording music through this. So this record that we just released has like several different drummers on it. And not to take anything away from any of the drummers because they all played fantastic, and we have actually great relationships with most of them.
I mean, it's so tough. It's so tough.
But it still sounds like us in the end of the day, and like that was the thing that was really refreshing and really great for us to feel. Where it's like, obviously the vision is intact and clear enough that regardless of who's playing, it's purely for their flavor and their taste. It's not necessarily that they're going to pull the whole thing in one direction.
Yes. Now, your current drummer, Josh English,
Josh
is a mainstay.
Is a mainstay, and frankly, I love his creativity. He's been the most creatively succinct drummer with our vision that we've had, and I could definitely see us collaborating on a deeper creative level and even maybe a writing level in the future. Because, the way we do things, I write 90% of the songs, 100% of the lyrics. And for me, it's not about me writing them all the time. If somebody has an idea to contribute writing to a song, I'm always open. It's always like, may the best idea win. And I know that's tough in a somewhat democratic environment. But you have to follow your heart and be genuine. And it doesn't matter how many people in a room, take your ego aside. What the best idea is. Which song is better. That's the beauty of music, is there's no right and wrong. There's no mathematical equation. When you hear something, you either are like, that's all right, or that stinks, or fuck, this is amazing.
Well, it's true. I will say, coming from the experience of being a bass player, trying to break through in a band as a songwriter, it can be hard because you just want, you want your Harrison moment where George gets a song and Ringo sings one. And so, that's a difficult thing to do.
For sure. You need to be in the right kind of band with a songwriter or band leader who is really open the way John and Paul were to George. That's kind of, I know they were kind of tough on him.
I'm pretty
at the
sure
same
there
time.
was a contract done up that was kind of why they did it. That then when you get to an Abbey Road, he knocked it out of the park. What I was getting at, though, is it's in a band you have, where you're the primary songwriter, and it's a democratic situation. It does take some time to understand what being a role player is in a group and understanding, what's effective and how it's going to work.
For sure. When you're a dedicated main songwriter, band leader, people think oh, great, you can just do what you want. But really what that means is now you just have to be on top of everything. Everything comes down to you. And really it's way more responsibility to have that position rather than something where everybody throws into the pot and may the best idea win in that kind of situation, because things get hairy. Being essentially the judge on what goes and what passes is a really tough and thankless job.
Yes. I've been on both sides of the coin. And
As have I am.
I understand it a lot more now.
For sure.
Now, this new album that you did, you started recording it. How many songs did you start with? Did you have it did did you understand what you were going to do, or did you kind of start? I know you had said that you had kind of done it in like fragments, but like, did you have an overall goal based on your first album? Like, okay, we did the first one. We know what it sounds like. Now we're going to do a new one. This is what it's going to be.
Absolutely, yeah. There was a lot of specific changes that we came in with for the full album. Excuse me.
God bless you.
God bless coffee. Yeah, essentially the first album was the first EP was very human. It was very much like drummer playing drums, musicians playing their instruments, singing, like the synth that was there was played by humans and stuff like that. And next time around, we really want to incorporate machines and like inorganic elements to it.
Okay.
And so we went into it. Everything we all the synth and MIDI tracks and like all the computer and the electronic sounds, we tried to make as human as possible.
Right.
And all the musicians' parts, like the singing and or the drums, the guitar playing, we tried to make as inhuman as possible. So changing the way we played things and really blurring the lines between who's playing what's playing what. Because I wanted to give more, I wanted to give more of the feeling of sound and an environment kind of coming at you, rather than, you hear the record and you see everybody on the stage, or like there's the drummer and that's what he's playing, that's the guitar part. I can kind of figure that out. I wanted everything to be like a movie, where when you look at a movie, you're not looking at the set and the props and the actors. You're just like living in that moment of the movie, and I wanted this record and actually all the music we do moving forward to take a little bit more of that cinematic approach, where you're just in it and it's you and your thoughts of whatever you in your feelings with the words, and it's not about listening to what musicians are playing. It's just about experiencing it in that moment. And I want to take our music to much more of an experiential place with this record. Well, we did, and moving forward even more.
Now, I listened to the record today. I've heard a lot of the songs live.
Yeah.
I've talked to you about this on different processes and stuff like that, when it was like 4 songs that you had and then 6, and then to complete the whole thing.
Yeah.
What are your favorite songs on the album?
Everybody's Famous is 100% a favorite.
Okay, that's a very interesting song. Now, you did a music video that I love.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You had done... what do you call them? Characters that...
Celebrity impersonators.
Celebrity impersonators, and you have them singing this song.
Sing the song.
So everybody's famous except me.
Right.
I mean, it's a statement that explains itself, but what was the basis of writing a song like that?
Well, I wanted to flip the narrative and to basically speak about myself in a obviously like a sarcastic manner, but at the same time tell it through the lens of the most populistic and popular figures we've ever come to know. So, if you're referencing the video, we're talking about Michael Jackson, Marilyn Monroe, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Divine, and people like that. And I just thought it was, I pictured a world where, the song's really complex. I'm not sure if I'm like answering your question exactly,
go
but
ahead.
It's just it's about, I think, the way we treat fame and the way we feel about fame and getting success nowadays is extremely toxic. And I thought the best way to address that within our music was to sing a song about how literally everybody's famous.
Right.
Which is kind of true in its own sense, while putting a big arrow towards me, being like, but not me, and, kind of having the freedom to say whatever I want, because, like, I'm not held to a standard that Drake's held to, or I'm not held to the same standard that Justin Bieber is held to. It's amazing that I can literally say whatever I want about whoever I want at this point, and that's something I'd like to preserve to a degree. It's not to say that, I want more people to engage with the music, whether for loving it or hating it, I don't care. But it's more about shining a light on some of the more darker moments of fame.
I like that.
Yeah, And, and it's always great to be funny. I think it's really funny. Above all, I was just trying to have a lot of fun and poking fun at people through the lyrics, specific people, and poking fun at myself, of course. I'm like, what other indie band, or like kind of successful band or huge successful band is going to get out there with a single and basically shoot themselves down in their own single? So like, kind of like straightforward, and I just thought that was funny. And, that was a risk I wanted to take.
I like it. And then the other thing too is that like, it sounds like such a pop song. Like it's such a single, the way it sounds. It stuck out for me as like, kind of like how we used to talk about like a Weezer album where it would be like, the record label will go back to Weezer and say like I think it was the Red album that they did. Yeah. And it's like, there's no hit single. And Rivers was like, all right, fuck you. I'll show you a hit single. And then he wrote, was it Pork and Beans?
Pork and Beans. Yeah.
And it was just like, I remember you and I talking about it, how it was like, wow, he's just cracked the code. Like he knows how to just write a single. Like he's like, this song's going to be a single. And it's not maybe like, and it's not even in the sense of success the song was, but it's like, it has these elements, like this sound, this particular way of being written. And I noticed that in Everybody's Famous Except Me. That's what I loved about it, is it was such a standard kind of.
Well, Mike, you cracked the code, and because you did, I'm going to say it to you, and you heard it here first. That song was never intended to be on that record. It did not exist when that record was like pretty much done, ready to go. And there was a moment where I did listen to it all. I'm like, you know what? It needs one more song. It needs a song about this topic. It's going to be written purely in this like quote unquote pop song format, but I'm going to twist it because, you gotta, and we're going to stick it on. And it was recorded so last minute. I remember going back to Joa Carvalho, who mastered both our records, but who mastered this record, like 3 or 4 months later, being like, I know you mastered this, but can you please like do this one too? And yeah, it just went on there, and that was very much the pork and beans of that record, because that's the one that gets played. I mean, that's the one that's on CBC. That's the one that Indie picked up, Indie 88, the station here. And really, our most commercially successful song, which is so funny, considering it's all about how commercial success is a joke sometimes.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write?
Very fast. It was just,
20 minutes, 2 hours?
I would say it was like a rehearsals, like an evening worth of work.
Gotcha.
So like, start
so
writing
a gift from the gods.
A gift from the gods, more so a gift from my conscience. It was kind of like a gift. I don't believe in God, so I can't say that.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, when a baseball player hits like a grand slam and he looks up and he goes, it's because of you. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Sometimes the song can take 3 months to write.
A lot of people have trouble congratulating themselves on the things they've done themselves.
Absolutely.
So I understand that God and other things are used to fulfill that need. So, but with the song, it was everything I've ever felt. Like, it was going back to the Ruby days. It was just like, this was gonna happen. It was like right on the edge. We had so much potential. Things were so great before it blew up. Damn it. Or like, and then like, all these other things. It was just, seeing all my peers at that time have their projects, continue to grow. And it's not resentful in any ways. I just thought it was just something that was just so in me that all I needed to do was open up the dam, and it just came out.
Right.
So it wasn't so much about like sitting down to write it mentally or like opening up to like God or any kind of like spiritual source. It was really more of a meditation thing, being like, what is inside you, what needs to come out, and then kind of making sure you let it without stopping it or changing it. And I'm happy that it turned out okay.
Yeah, more than okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Everybody's Famous. That's like your big, the single of the album, let's say. And not to say there's only one, but that one's like really like right there in front of you. It's like, here's a song. What about some of the other songs in the album?
Well, I love Timeless Eye, which I was happy that we were able to put out as a single because it's extremely down-tempo.
Yes.
Timeless Eye is something that, like, really deals with a lot deeper emotions that are very sensitive to me, and feels really great getting that out. You know, because Everyone's Famous has a lot of me in there, but it's, you know, there's like shrouded in fun and sarcasm and, like, you know, things like that. But Timeless Eye is really just raw emotion and raw stuff. It's very unfiltered in that sense. So I love that turned out pretty good too. So that's definitely a favorite.
It's you did a video for that one again with Genevieve.
We did a video, and
Genevieve
Blaze, who is is a great part of the Nursery team.
Yeah.
She is not only an incredible artist in her own right, but she totally gets what we're about. She totally gets what I'm about. I totally get what she's about. And it's just an excellent working relationship. And I know at this point, I don't really see myself ever working with anybody else unless, you know, they have something that really clicks.
I like the song. Oh, the name escapes me. Well, the first song on the album,
Mysteries?
Mysteries.
You
Yeah,
like that one?
It's a
Cool.
great song to start the album with.
For sure. I wasn't sure. I go back and forth. I'm like, either this is the perfect song for the start of the record, or like I literally absolutely hate it as an opening song. And like every time, like when I listen to the album, I skip
Yeah.
it. But like I have people tell me that, like including the band, the rest of the Nursery, was like, oh, it's obviously the best opening song. But
Now, it being the opening song, did you know the last song on the album?
yes, yeah, I didn't know. Well,
How come?
Well, the last song on the record was the title track. Is what we named the whole record after, because the last song kind of summed up a lot of, I guess, what I was feeling about the whole journey of
Yeah.
like making this record as a whole, Life After Wartime. So, yeah, it just had to be. It had to be the last song or the first song.
Gotcha.
So that was it. It was either going to be Mysteries first, Life After Wartime last, or the reverse, opening up with Life and ending with that.
I'll tell you that. So I recently put together an album, which I'm slowly releasing as singles. But when I was putting it together, I drew inspiration from the Blue Jays lineup. How they select their batting order, like how you have like your leadoff man, and then your second hitter is someone who will like get on base, push it out,
Yeah.
and then you have your third hitter is like your power hitter, and your fourth is like cleanup. And I kind of attributed the whole album to like how you would assemble a baseball team.
That's interesting.
Just
I like
because it
that.
was like, why would you? And the Blue Jays were really good when I was doing it, so I was like,
Yeah.
okay, second song, like you're like Everybody's Famous is like my Josh Donaldson, like you're like MVP of the team.
he's
you
like
know?
he's like the strong guy.
Yeah, and you kind of center it around because you have to round out. Like it's interesting too. Like
Yeah.
when you're settling song selection, you're rounding everything out. Like you're kind of giving it a direction, but you're just like in a song, beginning, middle, end. You're setting it up with a whole album, and it's not like a comedian's able to do it in one fell motion per se, where they're able to take like a special an hour and do it all at once and create like an arc, and they have the ability of things like throwback and stuff like that. With individual songs, I mean, you created a very rounded album, and you hit a lot of high peaks, low moments. You have a lot of like dancing grooves. You covered a lot of the sonic spectrum.
Yeah, and I think that's to its detriment and to its intrigue at the same time.
How come detriment?
How come detriment? Well, it's not a dance record, although there's
Yeah.
tons of hyper dancey songs like Crystal Beach and Digital Ashes. Like those are made for like a club. Like we went to a lot of like clubs and we're just like kind of to experience the vibe, and we're like, we're gonna do our own vibe of what this is. So
Right.
we wrote a lot of dance songs, but it's not a dance record, because a dance record that you put on to play at a party or if you were to spend like has to sound consistent, right? So at the same time, we like really pushing the boundary. We love a lot of like prog rock and like really like taking the format as far as it can go with like tempo changes and all this kind of stuff. At the same time, it's not a prog record, so someone who really gets off on that kind of stuff
Right.
is never going to enjoy it like that, because it has some dance songs that is the mortal enemy of progressive rock. So and then you have some really great just like folk songs, in the sense of like, when I say folk, I mean like songwriter songs, like
Right.
songs where it's all about the song. And like I think Everybody's Famous fits into this, and like something like Mysteries. But then you have some dance songs and some proggy shit, which is again like the mortal enemy of the songwriter. They're never going to go prog or make anybody dance.
Right.
So there's these three main elements that are all dear to me and dear to the band. Like I said, it's to the album's intrigue because it makes it ever more special and nuanced and complex and more sustainable, but also to its detriment because I think it makes it harder for somebody to identify it as one thing. And I think we live in an age, and I kind of have a problem with this, but we live in an age where you need to be able to identify things extremely quickly and easily. And any kind of variance from that seems to disrupt people to a point where they'll just kind of drop the idea of what they're thinking about. So, that's something that I notice now that it's out and people are starting to live with it a little bit more. But I'm hoping that people will really listen to and discover it for what it is, which is something that is nuanced and truly eclectic and, goes a lot of different places, and ultimately, and all those places is part of who I am and the kind of music that I write and the kind of things that I like to say and talk about. And I think that nobody is just one thing. We're all made up of so many different parts of, there's so many different parts of all of us that I think it's a little bit silly, especially as an independent artist who can do whatever they want to censor yourself.
I think it was Frank Zappa who said that, the best thing that music ever got was when nobody knew what to do with it. And you had like those 60-year-old cigar chomping guys at CBS Record just saying, I don't know, let's see what the kids think. And they just throw it out. And people just got to enjoy it for what it was. There was no such thing as a tastemaker. It was the next generation of, industry executive who started to say, I think this is cool because I like it. And then it started to kind of nuance things a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. It's that generation who are all the musicians themselves who grew up, who basically transitioned into the music industry, and they're all writing music and in bands before, and they carried that ego with them of, I know taste, well, I know what's going to work, and they took it. And sorry, but you don't know what's going to work. Nobody ever really does, and sometimes I think we're better when the industry just took more chances and let the audience decide what they liked or what they didn't like. And, if something didn't fly because people didn't like it, sure. But now things fly because thousands of dollars in time and infrastructure and people are put into things. If you market something the right way, a certain amount of people will get into it. It probably won't sustain. But, I think ego and the musicians transitioning into the industry has actually been one of the more destructive things to the industry. But that's probably maybe an unpopular opinion, but that's what I think.
Now, what's next for Alex Pulec and the Nursery?
Well, a new album, of course.
Yes.
We're writing new songs. If you let me play some music tonight,
I will. Yes,
I'll definitely. Yeah, I can do a new song that's not on the record.
Okay.
Where
are you artistically pushing next?
Something that's a lot more of one vision and one sentiment that I'm just gonna. Every song's gonna be about the same thing,
right?
In a sense, like they're gonna be different things, but it's all gonna be on this umbrella of one very specific concept. And I wouldn't call it a concept album, but it's more of like a mood album. The album's gonna have one very specific mood, and it's just about navigating the story of that mood. And it's gonna be a lot darker. It's gonna be a lot more intense, and it's gonna be a lot more vulnerable as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks very much, Alex. Now, where can people find you on the Nursery?
Just do that old-fashioned Google, www.thisisthenursery.com, because some joker is keeping their domain name from us and charging like $20,000 for it, and
same
ridiculous.
boat here.
Yeah. So thisisthenursery.com, and from there you can get linked to all our profiles. We have a lot of fun on Twitter, say a lot of fun shit. We just like to engage with people. Just engage with us and we'll engage right back. I love how a band these days can like just chat like regular people with people. We're all just regular people. We happen to write music and create music and visuals and other art. And this other person, whoever you are, I'm sure you do something that's just as interesting. So let's talk and let's communicate and enjoy what we try to do. Yeah.
Alex Pulec, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
I lie awake, sleepless eyes in rare cacophony. Oh, this city shakes, my friends screaming out in perfect harmony. Hold on, pitch me hard enough's not a dream. I've seemed to survive. We're growing up while it's blowing up. Paradise in life after war time. Oh, aeroplanes tear up the evening skies and shred the last of the stars. Hold on, hitch me hard enough's not a dream. I've seemed to survive. We're growing up while it's blowing up. The stench of honey in life after war time. A garden full of corpses in a bed of roses, bend toward the light of fleeting appetite. Though humor has its ways of coping with the days, I laugh until I bleed and think, why can't this be somebody else's life but me? Whoa, me.
Episode 1 done, in the books. I can't believe it. That's so crazy. I'm really excited about this. I wanted to mention to you about the format of this podcast now that you've listened to most of it. What I'm going to do is intro a song of the artists, which was a suggestion by Taylor Knox, who you'll hear coming up. We're going to do a song so you get to know the artist. We'll do the interview, a song. I think I'll just finish it off with a little outro saying thank you very much. Also, thank you very much for listening to this. It's episode 1, so I'm assuming that you know me, you're a friend, family. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, whatever you're doing, to listen to this. Let me know. Send me a message on Facebook all about the song podcast. And send me a message. Let me know what you think. If it can be better, whatever. Again, especially if you have a suggestion for an artist that you'd like to hear a podcast with, who's got interesting stories, if she's traveled the world, if whoever, I'm in. It's going to be great. I'm set up here in my apartment, Midtown Toronto, Yonge and Davisville. I got 2 mics, an audio interface, a laptop, and speakers. Oh, I'm ready. Again, thank you very much to Alex Pulec. Thank you to you. I'm really looking forward to going on with this journey with you. And I promise you that I will get better and not say like so much. Stuff like that. I've listened back to this. I know. Don't worry. The song we heard before I started speaking in the outro was Life After Wartime by the Nursery. And this song to play us out, this is a new song that Alex has just written. And it's called, very fittingly, Why Don't We Go Home? Again, Alex Pulec, the Nursery. Thanks so much.
I laugh all the time, I bitch, I whine. Each time I walk out, I'm looking over my shoulder. Oh, now is it he? Oh, now is it she? Oh, now is it me? Must be. Why don't we go home? Hours go by, slower than years. From the ledge you said, why don't we go home if we're born to die? And look what we lose. Why are we still here? Why don't we go home? Why don't we go home? Father, sister, brother, dog, cat, high school lover, stranger in the screen. Dream your dream of me. You sit, I'll drive, you'll spit. Baptized, don't lose your spirit, kid, and bring on the night. Why don't we go home? Hours go by, slower than years. From the ledge you said, why don't we go home if we're born to die? And love what we lose. Why are we still here? Why don't we go home? Why don't we go home? Why don't we go home? All alone, miss the friends, so what, you said, give me a night, I'll make you feel more than death, and life, together. Why don't we go home? Hours go by, slower than years. Why don't we go home if we're born to die? Why are we here? Why don't we go home? Why don't we go home? Why don't we go home?